Well, please welcome to the show, Jason Isaacs. How are you?
Thanks very much. I'm pretty good. Yeah,
He just gave you his whole resume there.
I did some of it, yeah.
And he's here promoting his new thing, Dig.
It is. I'm not allowed to say mini-series anymore. It's an event series, which is basically...
It's an event.
A mini-series, don't tell anyone. That's set in Jerusalem. And it's a kind of murder, mystery, conspiracy thriller. But the most interesting thing about it, we will go on about why it's great and what's interesting in it, is that it comes from these two geniuses. Tim Kring, who came up with Heroes, and Gideon Raff, who came up with Homeland. And the two of them are just such awesome storytellers that they tell you a story about, looking for a nose hair, you'll be leaning in and gripped. And when they have a story like this, which is about people trying to bring about the end of the world in the most contested piece of real estate the Earth's ever known, they really are in their strike zone.
This event, as we're calling it, has a lot of different feels to it. Where it's at some parts it's a little bit Indiana Jones, in some parts it's a little bit of National Treasure. It's a little bit
Da Vinci
of
Code. They say
Da Vinci Code, like
but
that.
But also like Homeland. There's a lot, and there's some very interesting and complicated human characters in it. It's not just an adventure, but it does. There's no question. There's a big mystery thriller component to it. Very Dan Brown, but the reason I wanted to do it is because, well, two things actually. Embarrassing confession. We were about to shoot. I knew they were going to shoot in places that cameras have never been and the public have never seen. In fact, really, in some places, literally, the public have never been and seen. They've never been seen by anybody before, apart from the people in the authorities. And that there was a real complicated, challenged human being making some difficult choices at the heart of it. So I knew I'd get to do all the stunts, and there's a ton of running and chasing and cars and girls and sex and whatever, all the kind of classic action adventure stuff. But at the heart of it is a very interesting man with some very interesting stuff going on in himself personally. It's a story about faith and fanaticism at the heart of it, and that was ultimately the thing that intrigued me.
It's nice to have an actual, not just the story of about something really terrible is happening, the end of the world is at stake, but to have this kind of treasure hunt adventure along with it.
There's stuff to, it's like there are clues and there are things you can look for, and when it gets to the end, nobody is quite what they seem. So these new layers are discovered all the time, and there'll be people home go, hey, I knew that, and other people go, no, you didn't say anything last week. But I get the scripts and I'd open and I go, fuck, you're kidding me, about some character I knew, or worse, there'd be some actor I'd be getting close to, having a lovely time, being friendly with, and then suddenly they'd drop down dead or be killed or stabbed or whatever. So, the body count piles up too. And
from the parts that I've seen, you can't tell. I mean, you'll learn as the series progresses, but you can't tell, is this some kind of religious, biblical kind of thing? Mm-hmm. Is it some kind of terrorism thing? Is it the Illuminati? Like, there's all kind of things at play that you think you got, like you just said, you got a grasp on it, and then all of a sudden, no, I was wrong.
No, they pull the rug out from under you often. I mean, one of the things that happened when I first went to meet them and say, this is an amazing script, thanks for asking me. I wanted to know where they got the ideas from.
Right.
And they looked at each other, and because I was complimenting them the kind of crazy imaginative things they come up with, and they looked at each other as if they were deciding whether to tell me or not, and they went, actually, we didn't make any of it up. We got it all from the newspapers and the Bible. And so there are real groups out there, maybe listening to this right now, but there's certainly real groups.
This may be the last time anyone hears from you.
But there are real groups out there who are working towards the end of days. There are, people with substantial resources, people sitting in elected office in this country and other places around the world, who are not secret about the fact that they'd be very happy for most people on the planet to die so that the world could be reborn with whatever Messiah in the way that they think it should be. And I'm hoping that there are FBI agents like the one I play, who are as tough and cool and determined and dogged as the guy I am on screen, who are keeping us safe in our beds, because it's a spooky, scary world.
You got to shoot this show in Jerusalem, Croatia, and here in the States.
And New Mexico.
In New Mexico.
In Albuquerque, and all the surrounding extraordinary. We were in caves, and we were on mountains, and we were on the rooftops.
That's what I was just going to ask you about going into the caves and stuff. How many of those caves were the off-limit parts for where you can't go tourism?
Oh, there were numbers of places that tourists aren't allowed that we were in with film crews. Not for political reasons, but because they're private. They are
private. Is somebody owns them?
No,
or
they're too delicate. Like if
fall apart.
If tourists, they'd fall apart. I mean, there was one place we were in tunnels in Jerusalem, and I said, "What's this charcoal on the wall?" As I ran my finger down it, and they said, "Well, that's actually." It's 2,000 years old. That's where the Romans burnt all the Jewish women and children alive during the rebellion when they were hiding down here. And you could run your finger down and have your fingers. But also there were places in Albuquerque, the national monuments that they don't allow the public into. Obviously, we had to make promises that we wouldn't damage it. We didn't. In Croatia, we're in these 65-million-year-old caves with stalactites and stalagmites that were just, beggared belief. And it looked like a set. Frankly, it looked like a Harry Potter set or a Star Wars set, but these were real places. And
how hot were they?
they were freezing cold. I mean, so
The
freezing
Croatian
cold.
ones.
Oh, my God. Well, all the caves were cold. I was naked a lot of the time, or semi-naked. I'm injured, or I don't want to say what's happening. But there's, whatever. There's some sex and wounding and whatever stuff happens. That's interesting. But I'm running around. The crew are dressed like they're about to assault Everest, to the east side of Everest. Me, I'm running around in half a t-shirt and a thong. And so it was colder for me than it was for them. But there's some icy times down there. And also we all got sick. I've still got a rumbling cough from God only knows what 65 million-year-old spores are doing to my body.